Hello, my friend. Welcome. You've settled in for the night, perhaps lying beneath a blanket, your breathing beginning to match the steady beat of your own heart. And tonight, I'm going to take you on a journey not to a place of hurry or noise, but to a quiet corner of the ancient world where candles burn low, voices murmur softly, and the air smells faintly of wine, beeswax, and warm bread. Our subject is a curious one that often carries with it loud imaginations and exaggerated tales. But here we will not rush into scandal or spectacle. We will take the slower path, the softer road. We will speak about the private gatherings of the ancient Romans, the dinners that stretched into the night, the games of conversation, the moments of shared closeness. And yes, eventually, the more intimate celebrations, but told in the gentle way you might hear by a fireside, the flames low, the air heavy with drowsy comfort. Imagine, if you will, the city of Rome as the sun lowers itself behind the hills. The skyline is marked with the tall outlines of temples, their columns catching the last golden light. The smell of the day-baked stone, warm dust, faint traces of olive oil from market stalls begins to fade, replaced by the cooler scents of night. Damp earth, faint smoke from cooking fires, and the sweetness of crushed herbs tossed into courtyards. A patrician household, that is, one belonging to a wealthy Roman citizen, begins to prepare for the evening. Servants move quietly about, each knowing their task without needing to be told aloud. Oil lamps are lit one by one, the flames small but steady, casting slow, moving shadows along painted walls. The air feels thicker indoors, but pleasant, as if the rooms themselves are settling into a slower heartbeat. If you listen carefully, you might hear the distant sound of a lyre being plucked in some other courtyard. It's not a performance, but perhaps just a slave musician practicing a simple melody. Above that, the faint clip of sandals against stone as invited guests arrive, their footsteps unhurried, voices low, exchanging greetings at the entrance before being welcomed in. The heart of these evening gatherings was often the triclinium, a dining room, whose name literally meant 3 couches. These were not like the chairs and tables you may imagine, but 3 long couches arranged in a U shape around a low table. Guests reclined, leaning on their left elbows, leaving their right hands free to eat, drink, and gesture as they spoke. The atmosphere was unhurried. Food was not simply served and eaten, it arrived in stages. Each course a small event, separated by sips of wine diluted with water, or a pause for conversation. Here, the talk was just as important as the dishes. A skilled host knew how to balance both, offering something pleasing to the senses, but also arranging guests in such a way that the conversation flowed. One might find a poet reclining beside a visiting senator, or a philosopher placed next to a visiting friend from Greece, so that the topics could wander between poetry, politics, and the nature of the stars. In some households, after the formal meal was done, the tone might shift. Musicians could be invited in, a dancer might perform, moving slowly in the golden lamplight. In certain circles, these gatherings might lead to games of flirtation, gentle and playful small touches, quiet laughter. And in other households, the evening could, as the hours grew later, become more intimate still. But always remember, the Roman world was as varied as our own. Not every evening was the same. Not every gathering was wild or extravagant. Often, the beauty lay in the rhythm of the night itself, the way wine loosened conversation, the way lamplight softened the faces of friends, the way the outside world seemed to fade until only this small, shared moment remained. As we sit with this image perhaps in the far corner of the triclinium, watching from a distance, imagine the sounds around us. The clink of a bronze cup being set gently on the table, the faint creak of a couch as someone shifts their weight, the rustle of linen tunics, the gentle laugh that follows a shared memory. Outside, a breeze moves through the courtyard garden, brushing past leaves of laurel and rosemary. Somewhere in the darkness, a cicada sings its steady song, almost hypnotic. The night deepens, and with it, so does the feeling that time has slowed, that we are no longer counting hours, but simply floating through them. As the evening wears on, and the outer world grows quiet, the nature of these gatherings could change. In some homes, particularly among the wealthy and well-connected, what began as a dinner among friends could transform into something more indulgent, not in the raucous, chaotic sense that modern stories often paint, but in a languid, deliberate way. The Romans did not always draw strict lines between dining, entertainment, and intimacy. It was all part of a continuum of pleasure to delight the senses, to enjoy company, to engage in wit and beauty, and at times, touch. There might be games not the loud, competitive kind, but gentle challenges, perhaps involving poetry, wordplay, or small dares, often involving physical closeness. In such moments, candles might be extinguished, one by one, until only a few remained, casting a dim and dreamlike glow. Conversation would soften. Movements would slow. The boundary between guest and lover might dissolve. And yet, even then, the pace was unhurried. There was no need to rush. The night was theirs to shape. For the Romans, at least those with the wealth to afford such evenings, the point was not simply indulgence. These nights were an art form, a carefully balanced blend of food, drink, conversation, and pleasure. They were a way to affirm friendships, to forge alliances, to enjoy life in its most refined form. Evenings like this were also a kind of performance. Hosts showed their taste not by excess, but by elegance, the right wine at the right temperature, the choice of music, the subtle pacing of the night. A successful gathering left everyone feeling, not exhausted, but somehow restored. The hour grows later now in our imagined scene. Some guests are beginning to drift toward private chambers. Others remain in small groups, speaking in low voices, a shared cup between them. The air is warm, the lamps flicker, the marble floors feel cool beneath bare feet. It is time to let this image soften, as if seen through half. Closed eyes. The air has cooled now. If you close your eyes, you can feel it. That slight shift that comes when the warmth of the day finally releases its hold. In the open courtyard, the night settles over the marble stones like a silken veil. You hear fewer voices outside now. The merchants have long packed away their goods. The tavern doorways are quieter. The sound of sandals on cobblestones has grown rare. Within the villa, the evening has reached that point where time no longer feels measured. It is not late, nor early, it is simply the hour. That soft pocket of night where lamps burn low, wine has worked its way gently through the body, and conversation has shed its polite formalities. Around the triclinium, the guests are more relaxed now. Tunics and stolas sit loosely on their wearers. The careful arrangement of hair and jewelry from earlier in the evening has begun to shift with the hour's pins rest on the table beside cups, and a necklace lies forgotten beside a plate of pomegranate seeds. They speak slowly, sometimes not at all, content to listen to the light pluck of the lyre, or the faint hiss of an oil lamp when a drop of spilled wine meets its heat. For the Romans, silence at the right moment was not awkward, it was a mark of trust. Only those at ease in one another's company could share a quiet without feeling the need to fill it. And so here, as the hours pass, there are long stretches where nothing is said, yet much is felt. In the corner of the room, a small tray of fresh figs sits beside a silver dish of honey. A guest reaches for one slowly, splitting the fruit with their fingers, letting the sweetness linger on the tongue before taking a sip of diluted Falernian wine. Another dips a piece of bread into olive oil perfumed with herbs, chewing slowly, eyes half closed in thought. This pace is deliberate. Food and drink are not hurried through, but savored. This was the Roman idea of otium leisure, but more than that, the art of enjoying life in a measured, cultivated way. It was a philosophy that said pleasure was not about excess, but about attention. Oil lamps made of terracotta or bronze, stand on low tables, or hang from delicate chains. The flame is small, but in this darkness, each lamp feels like a miniature sun, casting a halo of golden light around itself. The shadows they create are soft and unsteady. A gesture might send them swaying gently, like ripples in water. Sometimes a servant will quietly enter to trim a wick or refill the oil. The task is done in silence without drawing notice. It is a ritual in itself, keeping the night alive. The lyre's player changes their tune not abruptly, but like a river bending into a new course. The notes become lower, more drawn out, each one hanging in the air just a little longer. It's a song from the islands, perhaps, or an old melody whose origins are no longer remembered, but which lingers in the Roman repertoire. Music in Rome was more than entertainment. It was an atmosphere, a way to weave people together. In a night like this, it serves as a gentle bridge between one moment and the next, keeping the flow unbroken. By now, the night may invite ludus playful contests. These could be spoken, a clever challenge to recite a poem with a certain word, or to invent a riddle on the spot, or they could be more physical, like the passing of a small object from hand to hand in a way that required closeness. One game, sometimes played in the glow of the last lamps, involved the slow extinguishing of lights, leaving only one flame in the center. The guests, gathered closer now, would speak in low voices, the dimness making words feel heavier, more secretive. In some houses, these games drifted toward flirtation. In others, they remained innocent. What mattered was the shared mood, the slow, deliberate movement of the evening. There is something about Rome at night, the city that can be so loud and restless in daylight, becomes almost tender in the darkness. The cool air softens the scents, the faint sweetness of the wine, the herbal sharpness of laurel in the courtyard, the lingering traces of bread and honey. Beyond the villa walls, the Tiber flows quietly under the stars. The moon might be high, or just a pale sliver, its light tracing the rooftops and temple pediments. Somewhere, a watchman's footsteps echo on the stone, measured and steady. For those inside, the rest of the city feels far away. The laughter and talk belong only to this circle. The lamplight falls only on these faces. Time stretches, the senses heighten the touch of a cool bronze cup, the warmth of a cushion beneath an arm, the faint brush of fabric when someone leans in to speak. No one feels the need to announce that the night is ending. It will dissolve naturally, like mist in the morning. For now, it simply continues each moment, melting softly into the next. A final round of wine is poured, weaker now than earlier, the water cooling the heat of the alcohol. It's not meant to wake the senses, but to lull them. The conversation drifts to smaller topics, a shared memory from a festival, the peculiar habits of a neighbor, a fragment of verse someone recalls from their youth. The lyre's notes are slower now. A servant gathers empty dishes with quiet precision. The night is not over, but it is folding in on itself, the outer edges becoming softer. Soon, some guests will slip away to their rooms, where low couches or soft mats await. Others may linger in pairs or trios, speaking in hushed tones under the last light. The host will remain until the final cup is empty, until the final flame burns low. Outside, the stars watch in silence. The faint scent of rosemary drifts on the air. Somewhere in the city, a dog barks once and is still. The night, for now, belongs entirely to those within these walls. There is a point in every long Roman night where the mood changes not because anyone decides it should, but because the night itself carries you there. The air feels heavier now. The lamplight is dimmer, the pools of shadow in the corners darker and deeper. The last traces of laughter are softer, warmer, slower. This is no longer the hour for public conversation. This is the hour when voices lower themselves instinctively, and glances linger a little longer than words. Beyond the triclinium, the rest of the villa sleeps. Servants have withdrawn to their quarters. The rustle of their sandals on stone has faded. The kitchen hearth is cooling, the faint scent of roasted meats and herbs lingering in the air. In the colonnade, the moonlight lies in silver stripes across the marble floor, unbroken and untouched. The city beyond the walls is almost silent. A distant dog barks a low, lazy sound. Far off, the river shifts against its banks, the water moving with a sound so faint it might be mistaken for wind in the trees. Only a handful remain now, the ones who feel no need to hurry toward bed. They have drawn closer together, their seats no longer spread across the couches, but gathered near the same corner. The conversations now are private, meant only for the few who hear them. Sometimes they are about shared secrets, something that happened years ago at another gathering, something that might make a quiet smile pass between them. Sometimes it is a confession, not grand or dramatic, but small, human, and real. The Romans understood that the late hours could be a kind of truth, serum not from the wine alone, but from the softness of the night, from the feeling that the world beyond the room has melted away. Here, gestures speak more than words, a hand resting briefly on another's arm, a shared cushion between two people leaning closer together to speak, the brush of fabric against skin when someone shifts. For the Romans, closeness was part of the social fabric. Even in the more intimate moments, it could be playful, teasing, unhurried. Nothing was forced. The pleasure came from allowing the moment to unfold at its own pace. A servant, perhaps the last still awake, quietly moves through the room, extinguishing one of the lamps, then another, until only a few small flames remain. The dimness feels deliberate, protective, like the night wrapping itself more tightly around the gathering. In this softer light, the painted frescoes on the walls fade into the background, the patterns of red and ochre blending into shadow. The golden shine of bronze vessels dulls to a warm, muted gleam. In the reduced light, the other senses become sharper. The smell of beeswax from the candles, the faint perfume of someone's hair oil, perhaps scented with myrrh or rose. The cooler air drifting in from the garden, carrying the earthy aroma of damp stone and fresh leaves. Even the wine tastes different now, softer, less sharp, as though it too has grown drowsy. Sometimes the last guests will drift into the peristyle garden, moving slowly beneath the colonnade. The moon may still be visible, though lower now, its light touching the tops of statues and the edges of ceramic planters. A few torches might burn low near the walkway, their flames swaying gently when a breeze moves through. Out here, the sounds are even fewer, perhaps the faint plink of water dripping into the fountain's basin, or the rustle of laurel leaves. The air feels open, but the garden's walls keep the sense of privacy intact. 2 or 3 people may remain standing together in the garden, their voices low enough to barely carry. The subjects can range from philosophy, what is virtue, does fate exist, to the most ordinary observations about the day's weather or a friend's absence. What matters is not the content, but the tone, slow, measured, comfortable. The gaps between sentences stretch out, not because the speakers are lost for words, but because silence itself is welcome. This is the moment when wakefulness and sleep begin to overlap, when you might close your eyes for a moment in mid-conversation and not feel the need to open them again right away. The mind moves more slowly, ideas drifting like boats on a quiet river. In Rome, such moments were treasured. The night could be a performance earlier on a chance to display wit, beauty, and elegance, but in these last hours, all of that fell away. Only the truest, simplest connections remained. Eventually, the last guests will retire, moving quietly through the colonnade, the hem of their garments brushing over the cool marble. Doors close softly. The host lingers for a moment longer, perhaps blowing out the final lamp. The villa exhales, its walls returning to stillness. The moonlight now belongs to the empty garden. The air is cooler, the scents fainter, the sounds distant. The night holds on for just a little while longer before the first light of dawn touches the eastern sky. The faintest trace of pale silver begins to touch the edge of the sky, though here in the sheltered rooms of the villa, the night still lingers. A cool breath of air drifts in from the open courtyard, carrying with it the smell of damp earth and fading torch smoke. Somewhere in the distance, so faint it feels imagined, a rooster begins its first call, not loud, but soft and almost uncertain, as though testing whether the morning is truly ready to arrive. Inside, all is nearly still. The last lamp burns low, its flame flickering, throwing long, trembling shadows over the marble floor. A single bronze cup rests forgotten on a low table, a few drops of wine catching what little light remains. Cushions are slightly rumpled from where guests once reclined, and the air holds the delicate mix of scents, warm beeswax, herbs, faint perfume now faded and mingled with the coolness of dawn. A servant passes silently through the colonnade, barefoot, carrying a folded length of linen. The sound is so slight it could be mistaken for the rustle of leaves in the garden. Beyond the open doorway, the garden itself is still wrapped in night's quiet. The fountain continues its soft trickle, a constant companion to the changing light, as though unbothered by the turning of time. If you step outside, the stones beneath your feet are cool. The moon is a thin ghost now, fading in the brightening sky. Over the rooftops, the first true colors of the morning appear not yet gold, but a pale, washed blue that seems to dissolve the darkness. The statues in the garden stand unchanged, but their edges sharpen as the light grows. Laurel leaves shift gently in the breeze, their movements unhurried. The city is waking somewhere beyond these walls, but here the stillness is preserved a little longer. There is a kind of softness to this moment, the end of the night, the beginning of the day, both held at once. It is the last breath of the gathering, the point where memory begins to take over from presence. In ancient Rome, mornings could be loud, bustling, filled with the clamor of merchants and the tramp of soldiers' feet on the paving stones. But now, just for these few minutes, the world is hushed. You could imagine yourself the only one awake, moving through marble colonnades and shaded courtyards while the rest of the city sleeps. The air feels fresh, as if the night has been rinsed away. If you listen closely, you can hear the faint sound of the Tiber, its waters catching the first light and carrying it downstream. The day will come, as it always does, but the night has left its mark, a lingering warmth, a softness of thought, a memory of shared glances and slow words spoken under lamplight. And now, as the sky brightens and the shadows fade, it is time to rest completely. The couches are empty, the wine cups dry, and the last lamp is ready to be extinguished. Outside, the birds begin their morning chorus, but here within these walls, you can let the sound wash over you, not as a summons to rise, but as a lullaby leading you deeper into stillness. The city will wait. Morning will wait. For now, you can close your eyes and let the soft weight of sleep take you, carrying with it the images of a Roman night, warm lamplight, quiet gardens, the slow unfolding of hours until they dissolve into dreams. The light is stronger now, but it creeps into the villa in such a gentle way that it feels less like an ending, more like the night slowly laying itself down to rest. In the colonnade, the marble columns have taken on a faint gold at their edges. The garden's statues, which seemed like quiet companions in the dimness, are now touched with soft detail, a curl of hair here, a carved fold of stone drapery there, all revealed without haste. Somewhere, a small cart passes in the street outside, its wooden wheels murmuring over the paving stones. The sound is steady, unintrusive, the kind of background rhythm that belongs to morning in Rome. From a distant temple, a single chime echoes, perhaps the signal for the first prayers of the day. It reaches here as a faint, silvery note that lingers before fading into the still air. Inside, the last of the wine jugs have been set aside. The bronze trays are stacked neatly, though a fig or two still remain on a silver plate, forgotten by the guests. The stolas and tunics that were so carefully arranged earlier in the evening are now set loosely on their wearers, or draped over the arms of couches where their owners have retired. The host might pause in the center of the room, eyes moving slowly over the scene, the soft evidence of the night's hours. It is not the kind of beauty meant for display, but the kind that lives in the quiet aftermath. The echo of laughter, the impression of someone's hand still pressed into a cushion, the faint trail of perfume in the air. Through the open doorway to the garden, a breeze moves in, brushing against the remaining lamp flame. It flickers once, twice, and then settles, still holding on. The air feels lighter now, but not yet hot. The sun is awake, but its full warmth has not yet reached the courtyard floor. If you were to walk outside into the street now, the city would feel like a different world. The vendors are arranging their stalls. The smell of fresh bread curls out from a bakery's open door. Children's voices rise and fall as they dot through narrow alleys. But here, in the villa's inner rooms, the pace remains unbroken, slow, measured content. The garden is an island of its own, its walls keeping out the morning rush. The leaves catch the light, their green deepened by the night's dew. The fountain's gentle rhythm is unchanged, as if it ignores both night and day. The quiet lingers, offering itself freely to those who remain. It is here, in this suspended moment, that the night's memories settle into something softer, a mosaic of sensations and glances and words that will stay in the mind far longer than the exact hour they happened. The Romans knew that such gatherings lived on in recollection, carried like treasures into the days and weeks ahead. And so, as the final lamp is at last extinguished and the soft wisp of smoke drifts upward, the night gives itself fully to morning. Those who remained until the end drift away to their own rest, or perhaps into the day's first tasks, their steps unhurried. And you, with the stillness of the villa around you, can let your own eyes close, the images of the night dissolving like mist the golden light, the marble halls, the slow voices until all is quiet again, and sleep takes its place.